Welcome back to the channel. These stories are meant for late nights, quiet rooms, and headphones on. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight. Now, let's begin the first story. You grow up thinking danger has a shape, a person, a weapon, a storm, something you can point at and say, that's the threat. But I learned the truth at 21. Some dangers start with a whisper, a curiosity, a name spoken aloud in the wrong place. And once a name is given, it can be taken. My name is Aaron Pike. At least, that's the name I still answer to. I don't know if it's the one that Dark remembers. It started during my second year of university. I was studying comparative mythology, mostly because I didn't know what else to do with my life. My roommate, Elliot Graves, was in the same program, but where I treated it like academic study, Elliot treated it like a personal mission. He was obsessed with forbidden traditions, occult practices, ritual linguistics, anything involving ancient belief systems that modern people pretended never existed. He wore silver rings carved with symbols he never explained. He slept with a dream catcher made of bone and wire above his bed. And his bookshelf looked less like a student's collection and more like an evidence locker from a crime scene. Still, he was my friend, funny in a dry, detached way, brilliant, and always one step too close to the edge. One night in late October, he came back to our dorm room carrying a black plastic bag like it contained something alive. "I found it," he said, eyes shining. I didn't ask what. I should have. He placed the bag on his desk and unwrapped it slowly, reverently. Inside was a book. Old, heavy, leather cover cracked like dried skin. No title, no author, only a symbol burned into the front, a circle broken by 3 slashes. I didn't know why, but the sight of it made my stomach tighten. "Where did you get that?" I asked. He smiled. "From a place that doesn't exist anymore." Later, I learned the truth. An underground bookstore had burned down years ago. Official reports said faulty wiring. Rumors said something else. Elliot knew a guy who bought the salvage rights. Most of the stock turned to ash, except one back room that somehow stayed untouched. That's where the book came from. He opened it. The pages were yellowed and stiff, the writing hand-drawn in ink that looked almost brown. Not printed, written, like someone had copied it word by word with shaking hands. The language doesn't match anything in our databases. Not Latin, not Greek, not Aramaic, but some of the symbols repeat. Patterns, syntax, structure. "You're telling me this thing has grammar?" I said. "It has intent." That should have been enough for me to walk away. Instead, I leaned closer. The pages felt wrong to look out for too long, like the symbols weren't meant for human eyes, like they were instructions for something older than thought. Elliot turned to a marked section near the back, a page covered with dense text, red lines under certain passages, notes scribbled in his handwriting along the margins. "This part," he said quietly. "It's not a prayer, not a spell. It's an invitation." Invitation to what? He didn't answer, just smiled in that way he did when he knew he'd already decided something. A week later, he told me we were taking a trip. "There's a place," he said, "outside town, old ranger station in the hills. No cell service, no power grid, quiet, perfect for research." I should have said no, but I was young, bored, and grieving a recent breakup that left me eager for any distraction. So I agreed. 2 others came with us. Maya Lin, film student, sharp-tongued, brave to the point of recklessness, and Jonah Price, pre-med, skeptic, the kind of guy who made fun of anything supernatural, mostly to hide how uncomfortable it made him. We drove for hours into dense woodland, following a dirt road that narrowed until branches brushed the sides of the car. By the time we arrived, the sky was bleeding orange into black. The ranger station was a squat wooden building surrounded by tall pines. No other structures, no nearby roads, just forest stretching in every direction. The silence there was different, not peaceful, watchful. Maya noticed it first. Why does it feel like the woods are staring? Jonah laughed, because he watched too many horror movies. But even he locked his car door twice before we unloaded. Inside, the station was simple. 2 small bedrooms, a kitchenette, a common room with a stone fireplace, and an attic accessed by a pull-down ladder in the ceiling. Elliot kept glancing at that attic like a kid staring at a wrapped gift. We ate dinner, we joked, we pretended this was a normal weekend trip. But when the dishes were done, Elliot stood and said, "Time to work." None of us moved at first. Then we followed him up the ladder. The attic smelled of dust and old wood. The only light came from a circle of candles Elliot had already arranged earlier that day. Chalk symbols covered the floor in a wide ring. Some I recognized from ancient protection sigils, others I'd never seen before. At the center of the circle lay the black book. Maya crossed her arms. So exactly what are we doing? A controlled invocation, a linguistic summoning, proof that ritual language can influence perception, maybe reality. Jonas snorted. You're doing a ghost call. It's not a ghost, it's an entity, a listener, something that responds when addressed properly. Maya glanced at me, I glanced at Jonah. Neither of us liked this, but none of us left. Elliot asked us to sit at 4 points around the circle: north, south, east, west. Then he said, I need your full names, first, middle, last, spoken clearly. Why? Jonah asked. To anchor presence, so the circle recognizes who belongs inside it. That was warning number 1, but Maya shrugged and said her name. Jonah followed, rolling his eyes. Then me. When it came to Elliot's turn, he wrote all 4 names around the circle in chalk, careful, exact, like a surgeon. When he finished, he opened the book and began to chant. The language wasn't just unfamiliar, it was uncomfortable. The syllables sounded wrong coming from a human mouth, too sharp, too deep, as if someone else spoke through him. The candles flickered. A cold draft brushed my neck. The attic creaked overhead, though nothing moved. Then the silence dropped, sudden, complete, and I felt it. A presence in the room that hadn't been there before. Not seen, not heard, just known. Elliot's voice faltered, then steadied. I call the listener. I speak the invitation. The candles went out all at once. Darkness swallowed us. And from somewhere in that blackness, something breathed. Not a person, not an animal, something vast, patient, hungry. Then a whisper crawled across my ear. A name has been offered. I didn't scream. None of us did. Terror held us still. Then Jonah laughed nervously. Okay, that's enough. This is... A force hit him. He was yanked backward into the darkness beyond the candle circle. His shout cut off abruptly, like someone had turned off sound. Maya stood up. Jonah! Elliot shouted, stay inside the circle. But Maya ran after him anyway, disappearing beyond the chalk lines. There was a wet sound, a struggle, a choked gasp, then silence. I was alone in the circle with Elliot. My heart hammered so hard I thought I'd pass out. Elliot flipped frantically through the book by the light of his phone. No, he muttered. No, no. What's happening? I whispered. His face was pale as bone. I wrote Jonah's name wrong, he said. 1 letter missing.
That means he wasn't protected. He wasn't anchored. My stomach twisted. And Maya? I asked. She crossed the boundary. She offered herself willingly. A new whisper slid through the room. So many names, so little care. The chalk circle cracked. Just a thin fracture, but it was enough. Elliot looked at me with eyes full of terror and guilt. Aaron, it wants another name. The attic darkened further. The air thickened. Something moved just beyond sight. And then I realized we had just begun the ritual.
Elliot's voice barely carried over the pounding of my heart.
Aaron, he said again, it wants another name.
The air in the attic felt thick enough to choke on. The broken chalk circle pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat drawn in white dust. Somewhere, just beyond the reach of the phone's weak light, something shifted. Not footsteps, more like a change in pressure, as if the room was inhaling. I backed away until my shoulders hit the slanted wooden wall. "What does that mean?" I asked. Elliot swallowed hard. "It means the invitation worked. It means the listener came, and now it's inside the circle." A whisper moved through the attic again. Not loud, not quiet, just inside my skull. "Names given, names accepted, debt remains." I shook my head violently. "This is insane. We're leaving." I turned toward the ladder. The ladder was gone. Not broken, not collapsed, simply not there. Just a blank stretch of ceiling where the opening had been. Panic surged through me. I ran to where the ladder should have been and pressed my hands against the wood. Solid, unmoving. "We're not in the station anymore," Elliot said. I spun around. He was still standing near the center of the circle, phone light shining up at his face, making him look like a corpse telling ghost stories. "What are you talking about?" "The invitation didn't just call it here. It pulled us to its threshold. We're in between. Not here, not there." The whisper came again, closer this time. "You speak fear. You speak doubt. But your name remains written." The candle stubs on the floor reignited on their own, black flames licking upward instead of normal fire. Their light revealed the attic differently now. The walls stretched farther than they should. The floor rippled like shallow water. And behind Elliot, just beyond the circle's edge, stood something tall. Not fully seen, just the suggestion of form. A silhouette with too many angles. A presence that felt like standing at the edge of a cliff. I couldn't breathe. Elliot turned another page in the book with shaking hands. "There's a closing right, a dismissal. If I speak it, it should send the listener away." "Then do it," I said. He began to read. The words left his mouth wrong, broken, rushed, desperate. The air screamed, not in sound, but in sensation. Every hair on my body stood. My teeth buzzed, my vision blurred. The tall shadow behind him tilted its head. "You speak without care. You open without offering. You close without payment." Elliot's voice cracked. "Aaron, I need your middle name, quickly." "My what?" "The circle recognizes my full name. If I don't bind you correctly, it'll take you next." My thoughts scrambled. Terror erased memory. "I don't know," I said. "I never use it." Elliot stared at me in horror. "Then I'll guess," he said, "just so the circle holds." He knelt and scratched another name into the chalk near my position. Letters rushed, uneven, wrong. The shadow leaned forward, and I felt something wrap around my ankles. Not hands, not rope, something cold and invisible, dragging. I screamed and grabbed a wooden beam. My nails tore, my fingers bled. The unseen force pulled harder, trying to drag me beyond the circle. Elliot shouted and grabbed my arm. "Don't let go!" The chalk circle burst into a flare of white light. The attic flickered like an old film reel. Walls stretched and snapped back. The shadow let out a sound like a dozen throats gasping at once. Then everything went black. I woke on cold stone. Rain fell on my face. I opened my eyes to the night sky above me. The ranger station was gone. In its place stood the burned skeleton of a chapel. Charred beams, collapsed roof, blackened stone walls.
weeds growing between cracked tiles. I pushed myself up, muscles aching. My clothes were dirty, my hands bloodied, my head rang. Elliot lay nearby, motionless. I shook him. "Elliot, wake up!" He stirred, coughing. His eyes opened, wild and unfocused. "Did it work?" he croaked. Before I could answer, we heard a sound inside the chapel ruins. A slow, dragging movement. Wet. Heavy. We backed away instinctively. From the darkness beyond the broken altar, something emerged. Maya, or what was left of her. She walked with jerking steps, like a puppet with tangled strings. Her eyes were open, but there was nothing behind them. No fear, no thought, no soul. And behind her shadow, stretching along the stone wall, was the tall shape again, watching, waiting. Elliot grabbed my arm. "Run." We didn't argue. We ran into the woods. Branches cut our faces, roots tripped our feet. We didn't stop. Not even when exhaustion burned our lungs, not even when the forest grew too dark to see. Somehow, we reached the road. Dawn found us there, shivering, broken, alive. The police found the ruins that afternoon. They found no records of the chapel, no records of the ranger station, no trace of Jonah, no trace of Maya, no book, no chalk circle, no candle wax. Only burned stone walls that locals insisted had been abandoned since the 1950s. The official report said we suffered shared psychosis brought on by stress and environmental exposure, that we imagined everything, that our friends likely got lost in the woods. But Elliot knew better. I knew better. Because after that night, my name no longer felt like mine. Every time someone said Aaron, a second voice whispered it underneath, slightly wrong, slightly twisted. And sometimes, late at night when the room is quiet and the lights are off, I feel a presence standing just beyond sight, listening, waiting, for the name Elliot wrote wrong, the name that does not belong to me, the name that dark remembers. Because when you give something your name, you give it permission to return. And one day, it will.
People think desperation makes you pray to God. They're wrong. Desperation makes you pray to anything that might answer. I was 21 when my life split into before and after. Before, I was just another college student drifting through classes, pretending I knew what I wanted. After I became something else, something I don't fully understand, something that still whispers in the back of my skull when the world goes quiet. It started with my sister. Leah was everything bright in my life. Older by 3 years, fearless, protective, loud in a way that filled every room. When our parents divorced, she kept me together. When I failed my first semester, she dragged me back on my feet. When I got lost in my own head, she was the voice that pulled me out. Then she got sick. Not a slow sickness, not something doctors could explain. It was fast and cruel. One day she was laughing at the kitchen table. 2 weeks later, she was in a hospital bed, eyes hollow, skin gray, heartbeat flickering like a dying bulb. They said infection, then autoimmune failure, then unknown complications. Unknown, a word that means we don't know how to save her. The night she died, I sat in the hospital stairwell with my head in my hands and promised myself I would never feel that helpless again. Never sit and watch someone fade while I did nothing. Grief rots people in different ways. Some drink, some pray, some pretend. I searched. I started reading forums about miracle recoveries, about near-death visions, about ancient rites. I told myself I was looking for comfort, for meaning, but deep down, I was looking for a way to change what had already happened. That's when I met Rhea. She sat across from me in the university library, black hair pulled back, dark rings around her eyes, surrounded by old books that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. I noticed the symbol on the cover of one of them, a circle broken by a single vertical line. It made my stomach twist. She noticed me staring and smiled slightly. "Most people don't even see it," she said. "You must be looking for something." I didn't answer, but she didn't need me to. Over the next weeks, we spoke often. She never asked about my family or my past, but somehow she always guided the conversation toward grief, loss, the unfairness of death. It felt natural, like she knew exactly where the wound was. One night, as the library lights dimmed for closing, she leaned forward and said, "There are prayers older than religion, words that don't ask, words that command." I laughed nervously. I'm not into cult stuff. "This isn't cult," she said. "This is hunger, and you're full of it." She was right. She told me about a prayer passed through forgotten circles, not written in any public book, not meant for curious students. A prayer said to open a door between the living world and whatever lies beneath it. Not heaven, not hell, something before both. I should have walked away. But grief is a chain, and Rhea had just shown me a key. The place she chose was an abandoned riverside church outside town. Flooded once, burned later, never rebuilt. Only stone walls, broken stained glass, and pews warped by time remained. We arrived just before midnight. The air smelled of wet moss and old ash. Crickets stopped singing the moment we stepped through the broken doorway. Rhea carried a small metal tin, a stick of chalk, and a single red candle. I carried nothing. She said I only needed my voice. She drew a circle on the cracked stone floor, careful, precise. Inside it, she wrote my full name, Jonah Parker Hale. Seeing it carved there felt wrong, like my name had been taken from me and given to the floor. "What if I'd change my mind?" I asked. "You won't," she said quietly. Then she handed me a folded piece of paper. On it were lines of strange words written in neat handwriting. The syllables looked sharp, unfriendly, like they weren't meant for human mouths. "You will stand inside the circle," she said. "You will read this exactly at midnight. No pauses, no corrections, no fear." "And what happens?" I asked. Rhea's eyes caught the candlelight. "It answers." She left before midnight, just walked out of the ruined church and disappeared into the trees, leaving me alone with the candle and the circle and the paper in my shaking hands. Wind moved through the broken windows. The candle flame leaned but did not go out. At 11:59, I stood in the circle. My heart hammered so hard I thought I might vomit. At midnight, my phone buzzed. I began to read. The words felt thick on my tongue, like speaking with a mouth full of stones. The air around me tightened, my ears rang, my breath fogged, though the night was warm. I finished the last word. Silence. The candle flame stretched upward, then snapped out. Darkness swallowed the church. Something breathed behind me. Not human breath, too deep, too slow, too close. A voice unfolded inside my mind. "You called." I froze. My knees weakened. "I didn't call you by name," I whispered. "You spoke the key. That is enough." I felt eyes on me, many, from all directions. "What do you want?" I asked. The voice rippled, layered, like many voices stacked together. "You asked for power, for reversal, for what was taken." My throat tightened. "My sister," I whispered. "I want her back." Silence stretched so long I thought maybe I'd imagined everything. Then the voice said, softer now, "You did not name the offering." I swallowed. "What offering?" The air grew colder. "A door must be paid for, a life for a life, a place for a place." My legs shook. "I didn't agree to that." "You spoke the prayer," it replied. "Agreement was never required." The circle beneath my feet cracked. Thin fractures ran through the stone like veins. Shadows gathered at the edges of the ruined church. They slid across the floor like spilled ink, slow and deliberate. I backed away, but the circle held me. My feet would not cross its line. A shape formed beyond the candle's reach, tall, word, not fully solid, as if reality struggled to contain it.
I felt tears running down my face. "I don't want this," I whispered. The thing moved closer. "You opened the way," it said. "Now choose." The shadows stretched toward me, and far away in the darkness outside the church, I heard Rhea's laughter, soft, satisfied, weighing. And that was the moment I understood. I was never the seeker. I was the sacrifice. I don't remember stepping out of the circle. One moment I was trapped inside those chalk lines, the stone beneath my feet cracking like thin ice. The next, I was on the cold chapel floor, gasping, the taste of metal in my mouth. The candle was gone. The paper with the prayer had turned to gray dust. The air no longer felt heavy, but something had changed. I could feel it, like a second heartbeat inside my chest. I stumbled outside. The forest greeted me with silence. No crickets, no wind, just trees standing like watchful pillars under a clouded sky. I ran. I didn't care where. I just ran until my lungs burned and my legs gave out on the dirt road leading back toward town. Headlights found me. A passing truck slowed. A man leaned out and asked if I was okay. I didn't answer. I just climbed in, shaking, staring at my hands. They looked normal, but they didn't feel like mine anymore. He dropped me at the hospital when I told him I'd been camping and got lost. They treated me for dehydration and shock. The doctor said I'd been lucky. Exposure could have killed me. Killed me? I almost laughed, because something inside me knew I had not been lucky at all. I went home the next morning. I slept for 12 hours straight. No dreams, no nightmares, just blank darkness. When I woke, I felt clear, too clear. My mind was sharp, my body light, my grief distant, like Leah's death had happened to someone else. That should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me. I visited her grave that afternoon. Fresh flowers, damp soil, gray sky. I stood there for a long time, trying to cry, trying to feel anything real. Nothing came. Then I heard it. A whisper. Not outside, inside. Low, familiar, waiting. "You asked for power," it said. "You have been given a seed." My knees nearly gave out. I didn't speak aloud, I just thought the question. "What did you do to me?" Silence. Then softer. "You opened the door. Something crossed through. Something small. Something growing." I stumbled back from the grave, heart racing. The whisper faded, but I knew it hadn't left. It was in me. Over the next weeks, strange things began happening. Lights flickered when I walked into rooms. Animals avoided me. My reflection sometimes looked half a second out of sync with my movements, like it was learning how to copy me. I tried calling Rhea. Her number didn't work. I went to the library. No one there had ever seen her. No student record, no library card, no trace. It was like she had never existed. Until one night I found a symbol drawn in condensation on my bathroom mirror. The broken circle with the vertical line. The same symbol from the book she had been reading. My hand shook as I wiped it away, but the whisper returned. "Your grief made you open the gate. Her hunger guided you. Now you carry the mark." I locked myself in my room that night. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the chapel, the circle, the shape beyond it, watching, waiting. By morning, I knew running wouldn't save me. I needed answers. I drove back to the ruins of the Riverside Church. Daylight made it look smaller, less powerful, just broken stone and old wood. But the moment I stepped inside, the air changed again. Cold, heavy, listening. The circle was gone. Only faint chalk dust remained, washed thin by dew. I knelt where my name had been written. Jonah Parker Hale. Except it wasn't my name anymore. Something had carved over it, fresh, deep, jagged. A new name, one I didn't recognize, one written in the same sharp language as the prayer. I reached out and touched the stone. The whisper surged. "That is what you are becoming." I pulled my hand back like I'd been burned. "No," I said aloud. "You're not taking me." The air trembled. Shadows pooled in the corners of the chapel, stretching toward me. That shape, the one I had seen only briefly before, began to form again. Not fully here, not fully there, just enough to remind me of what I had invited into my life. "You asked for a reversal, a life returned, a death undone, a heart restored." My throat tightened. "Leah, you never asked if she wanted to return. You never asked what price she paid to stay gone." I sank to the floor. "Then give her back," I whispered. "Take me instead." Laughter rippled through the chapel. Not cruel, not kind, just inevitable. "Your place is already chosen. Your body walks. Your soul is marked. When the seed is full, you will be the door, and through you, others will pray." My stomach turned. I understood then. I wasn't meant to die. I was meant to spread it. I left the chapel before the shadows could close in. I drove home with white knuckles on the steering wheel, repeating one thought over and over: I will not let this win. I spent the next months searching. Old texts, forbidden forums, forgotten religious archives, anything that mentioned prayers that open gates and entities that answer. Most posts were nonsense, roleplay, fiction. But then I found a thread. A single post buried under years of dust. If you spoke the prayer and survived, do not think you escaped. The seed remains. It grows through attention, through belief, through repetition. The only way to starve it is silence. Do not teach the words. Do not repeat the symbol. Do not let others pray what you prayed. My hands shook as I read the final line. If you fail, you will not die. You will become the voice that answers. That was 2 years ago. I've never returned to the chapel. I've never spoken the prayer again. I've tried to live quietly, normally. I work, I eat, I sleep. But sometimes, late at night when the world is still and the lights are off, I feel it stir. A pressure behind my eyes, a whisper curling around my thoughts. Someone is calling, someone is desperate, someone is praying. And I have to fight it every night, every moment. Because one day, I know I will be too tired. One day, I will stop resisting. And when that happens, a broken student named Jonah will disappear. And in his place will be something else. Something that answers prayers. Something that opens doors. Something that waits in the dark for the next grieving soul to whisper the wrong words in the wrong place at the wrong time. So if you ever hear about a forgotten prayer, if someone tells you there are words that can change death, if you feel desperate enough to speak to whatever hides beyond the veil, don't. Some doors were never meant to open, and some answers are worse than silence.